Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation, and welcome back. You are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Skaggs and the Captain, and we have another special episode to give you guys today. Skaggs, you want to introduce our guest today?
Yes, sir. So we have Mr. Andy Koons. Thank you for joining us, buddy.
Thank you, Andy.
He is a friend that was referred to me, or we kind of like linked up on Twitter via Mike G from the Fundamental Opposites podcast. So real quick before we start, I forgot to mention that I was on the Fundamental Opposites with Mike 2 weeks ago. So go check that out on his podcast, Fundamental Opposites. We kind of talked about how we have both had similar journeys, kind of changing over the past 10 years politically, me and him. It was interesting. So go check that out. Andy, what's up, brother? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming, man.
Exciting to have you. Maybe this episode will kind of be a little bit different. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, but we always talk about the news and stuff. So let's kind of just talk about you, man. You are an interesting person, Andy. You are a musician to some extent, I believe, correct? Why don't you just tell us about yourself, man? Honestly, like, who are you? What do you do? What are you into?
Okay. Is it okay to curse on here?
Yes,
of course. Yes,
right.
it fucking is.
So I have a pretty gigantic penis, extremely talented, as you can see, lady killer. No, I love to make people laugh. I love writing the heaviest music possible, and I love being creative and writing shit and making shit, stuff like that. So I've just, I've been posting these political videos to TikTok for a little over a year now. And that's, I've built a pretty substantial following there. I've got 60,000 followers there, and it's all just been from, writing and recording these little skits. And, I try to talk about political issues and make them funny and sort of break them down so that the average everyday person can kind of understand some of the liberty principles that I believe in. Because, a lot of people, you ask them about what libertarianism is, or, what an Ancap is, or anything like that, and they'll give you some really surface level answers. The only knowledge they have of the Libertarian Party is anytime they've been made fun of on TV.
Right.
Ron Swanson.
Ron Swanson, or what is Aleppo? Yeah, one of those two.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Andy, while everybody's still here listening, why don't you shout out your TikTok user handle? See if we can generate some followers for you there, pal.
Hell yeah. It is at Andy Koons. That is Koons. You'll see my big dumb face as the profile picture. I just uploaded one today about what's going on in the mind of a gun owner whenever somebody breaks into their house. I think it's pretty funny. Oh, thank you.
No problem. You're welcome, of course.
So anyway,
awesome, you're good.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Don't even know where I was going with that. I'm not gonna lie.
You got your following on TikTok. How has so Skaggs and we took a shot at TikTok, and
I knew that's where this was gonna go.
Yeah, blew up 50,000 followers like overnight. Couple of videos with 1 million views, 100,000 views, and we went after Pfizer, and they shut us down hard-bodied. Yep. How has it been going for you? Has it been a smooth ride? You got 3 strikes? You hanging on by a thread? Once you're over the target, they'll nail you.
Yeah, it's probably safe to say I'm hanging by a thread. I've gotten a handful of my videos taken down. Handful of them had the sound removed.
Yeah.
And a handful of them I've been able to appeal. Like there was a video that I did and not to sound like a fucking hippie or anything, but there's a video that I did called "Why Do We Celebrate the 4th of July?" And the basic idea was, why do we celebrate insurgency, insurrection, rebellion, rioting, you name it. Why do we celebrate that stuff on July 4th, and then on July 5th we go right back to being statists? Basically, we go right back to worshiping the largest empire in the world, and so it's this weird kind of dichotomy that Americans have. And I wrote that video, and they were like, it was taken down because of violent rhetoric or something like that, or domestic terrorism
Showing
language.
the truth.
I already see how
Yeah.
they're trying to like warp that,
Yeah.
Yes, as if the 4th of July isn't exactly that, a
Right.
violent revolution against a tyrannical government, and we're literally celebrating that to some extent, but some sort of censorship, mental gymnastics, in order to get you a strike on
Right.
social media applies to the actual real history of the
Yeah.
day.
Don't
Yeah.
question worshiping the empire.
Yeah.
Just fucking fire your, shoot
Yeah.
off your fireworks
Yeah.
if you're in a place that even allows them.
Yes.
And keep your mouth and keep your trap shut.
Yeah.
That's what you should
Go
do.
get that vaccine on the 5th.
Well, I mean, so one of my biggest inspirations. I sound like a douchey artist whenever I say that, but like one of my inspirations.
That's what I want to
whenever
hear
it comes to,
anyway.
like,
That's going to be
okay.
one of my questions.
Oh, okay. Am I a douchey artist?
Yes.
I'm about to prove it.
No, I
dude.
was gonna. I'm
the douchiest.
Sure. So real quick, I'm friends with someone who's a musician, Gabe.
Mhm.
He was on one of our episodes recently, and I asked him like musician's point of view of questions to ask you because it's good insight, and that was basically one of his questions. But keep going, man. Sorry.
Okay. Well, so to back up the other guy, or the musician guy, whenever it comes to music, there are certain genres that whenever I hear them, I'm just like, that's the worst thing ever. And I can't stop myself from just saying that out loud. Like, there are certain genres of music that my wife listened to that as soon as she turns it on, I'm just like, this is just the worst music I've ever heard. Or like, I don't even understand. And that's the really shitty, douchey artist part of me coming out and being like, my music is just way better than this. Like the music I listen to. The music I listen to sounds like a pig slaughtering factory, and so
You kind of look like you're in a pig slaughtering factory right now, to be honest with you.
Right behind that steel
Yeah.
grate is just a dead pig hanging there for tomorrow.
Well, I got to get my fuck toys from somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, the music is one of those topics that I have to be really careful if I'm going to start talking about it, because I can't just let somebody enjoy something different than me. That's where I'm a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah,
artist.
I used to be like that, man, for a time, especially in my Bronx days, with like hip hop and things like that. But as I've gotten older and I've gained a larger appreciation for different types of music, I'm not going to say I don't listen to things and I think like this sucks or this is awful. Or get like that old man mentality, like, back in my day,
New music sucks.
Biggie Smalls was amazing, and the new rap is garbage.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I try to have an open mind with music, and everything is a little bit different. Everybody's kind of creative in their own way. But I could definitely vibe with you. Yeah.
I think there's two aspects to that, though. I think there is maturing and gaining the ability to see the artistry in genres that you're not familiar with. Like, for example, I could not stand rap whenever I was growing up. I was just like, it's just reading out of a rhyming dictionary. Like, it's nothing, And then as I got older, especially, and I got to say that Eminem is probably the person that really got this started with me, but I was listening to Eminem and I was like, there is some real legitimate talent into like good hip hop. There's 100,000 million shitty hip hop artists out there that are just writing the same formulaic garbage.
Right.
But then there's people like Eminem, people like fucking Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar, I think, is incredible. And then you go and listen to some of the older stuff like NWA and like the first few Snoop Dogg records. Like, there's real artistry built into that, and I just had to kind of grow up a little bit before I was able to see it. Same thing with like country or bluegrass or anything like that, But there is some music out there that's just objectively terrible.
I have a funny feeling you're going to say EDM or house music.
Well, even with that, there's some that's really good, and you can get into it and be like, yeah, I can fuck with this.
Yeah.
But then there's other stuff where it's just like, you just made a bunch of robot fucking noises. It sounds like a robot orgy. Like there's no like structure to it, or like, that like, I don't know. They're just like, if I can just cram as many fucking weird sounds as I can into this 5-minute track, it's gonna be the sickest shit in the world. And it sounds like static.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes also music has it's like Tool, and like the EDM stuff is kind of a Tool cap that we would use when we're like
a party
in a club in Atlantic City, and Steve Aoki is out there throwing cakes at us, and you're in that type of and you're in that like that zone, that mode. And then there's like Metallica, who I've seen multiple times, and you're there like you barbecue, and then you go in there like ready for war in an arena, in an outdoor stadium. It's a different vibe, a different mindset. I kind of like to get in all those different types of things, but that's what I kind of like to look at it too, that they're all like a tool to be used in different scenarios,
different mode for different setting,
kind of like a gun, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, especially for the album that I'm about to release in May, that is, I mean, I can see what you're saying with it being a tool, because I mean, for me, I'm a very outspoken libertarian anarchist type person, whatever you want to call me, and I use that as a vehicle to put sort of that liberty message and that anarchy message into a media for people that I think don't really get a lot of attention, especially politically, and that's like metalheads, and of course that's just one avenue. There's also the avenue of people who like to make fun of stuff on TikTok, which is where I have my biggest audience. But then the music route, especially with heavy metal, it's like heavy metal induces emotion just like any other genre does. It's just that most of the time it happens to be anger, and rage, and that's fine. Those are human emotions. It's okay to have those emotions. And also there's a lot of shit to be mad about. If you look at what's going on in Yemen, if you look at the Iraq war, like 1 million people died, and that's something that like I have a really hard time, not to break Godwin's law and immediately bring like Hitler into this, but like if you think about the Holocaust, 6 million Jews died, and we look at that, and the more you think about it, it's like, that's a fuckload of people.
Yeah,
that's we cannot fathom how many people that is, let alone we definitely can't fathom how much just 1 million is. Right. It's too big of a number for, and that many people died in Iraq. That's something that we should all be angry about.
So,
you know what I mean?
So I was gonna. You've been amazing so far, man. You've been answering all my questions before I even get to ask them. But so in a sense, like I'm thinking of, while you're saying this, kind of like the Rage Against the War Machine rally that recently happened. Like in a way, do you take your you're libertarian, you're an anarchist, so I'm gonna assume you're against war, you're anti-war, and do you
That's
kind of
my one bugaboo. I actually love war.
Okay, so you're one of those.
Big war hawk.
You're one of
war hawk.
One of the people who want to bring libertarianism to the world at the barrel of a gun. Like you're gonna have to, we're gonna drone strike libertarianism into people. But I was gonna say, so like, does that kind of
libertarianism right into your fucking skull?
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, like, is that kind of how you channel your like your ideals, your ANCAP, your libertarianism into the music? Like you're expressing your rage and your anger against war and these these insane corrupt wars that we fought, especially the past during our lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's sort of the album is called God Emperor. It's a concept album, and the God Emperor represents the state, and it's sort of visually illustrated. That's a dumb phrase. It's illustrated by this sort of sickly looking pig wearing a papal robe. Now, I have no qualms with Christians or Catholics or anything like that. I'm not religious myself, but I don't hate religious people, but the reason I used that specific imagery was specific. And you have this pig that represents the state. He's wearing religious garments, and I sort of see like statism as the state's attempt to replace God. because I see statism
they-
just like a religion,
Mhm.
and so whenever it comes, especially with like conservative Christians, like
Sure.
I really feel bad for them because I'm like this organism, this parasitic organism, the state is like trying to replace the thing that is important to you, and the thing that you believe in. It's trying to corrupt this sort of pure thing that you believe in,
Sure.
and you're just supporting it.
What
you
you're
know?
describing, man, is something that the first time I read Anatomy of the State by Murray
Yes.
Rothbard kind of like opened my eyes and shattered my worldview on the state and stateism, and really just how it kind of it is in a sense a religion. And even I've to boil it down as simple as possible, the Pledge of Allegiance in school, it's a prayer. I mean, you're
It's
literally like
creepy.
putting your hand over your heart and praying to the government, to the state. In a
Yeah.
sense, it's a religious act. I'd never really thought of it that way before because I never challenged my perception of it. But now that's kind of the way I view that
Right.
act.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring up Rothbard because it was reading Anatomy of the State where like I was brought into libertarianism by Dave Smith by
What-
listening to Part of the Problem.
If I could ask, what were you before you were a libertarian? Were you just independent? Were you
Oh
lost? Or
man.
hardcore Republican?
Well, I grew up hardcore Republican,
Right.
And then after I moved out of my parents' house, I rebelled. I started wearing fucking skinny jeans back when I could.
Voting for Obama.
well, that was Obama was right before I graduated high school.
Okay.
And-
How old are you?
or I'm
If I could
sorry.
ask.
I'm 33.
Okay, so you're our age.
Right
Gotcha.
around our
Yeah.
age,
Yeah.
So it was right after I graduated from high
Right.
school, but that was like my final year as a Republican, and I did not like John McCain, and it's because I was
Good choice.
extreme. Well, it was for all the dumbest reasons because I was like, he's not puritanically Christian enough for me because I saw him say hell on a TV show one time. Like I my dad's pastor, so I grew up very, very like
Okay.
devoutly Christian. I wasn't allowed to say like any bad words or anything, like never kissed a girl till I was like almost graduated. Like it was wild growing up. But after I rebelled, like I left religion behind. I rebelled hard politically. I went super, super far to the left.
Okay.
Like basically a Marxist to the left, and I started to see behavior from leftists that I was just like, this isn't right. And
Like what?
it was,
Can you expand on that real quick? That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so there was a Facebook post that I saw from this podcaster named Eli Bosnick. He's a gay pussy, if you will. He he had this Facebook post and it said hey, if you woke up today, I just I hope you're gonna have a great day. You're beautiful, everybody, or you're loved, you're special. It was like a very positive thing that he just put out there, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then the last sentence is, unless you're a Trump supporter, then you can eat shit and die. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? And like whenever I saw that, and maybe this is because I grew up super Christian and I have this like witnessing mindset, and like I got to go spread the gospel and stuff like that. Like I thought about that with politics too. I was like, we have to go out and change the minds of these Trump supporters, not just shit on them all the time and not call them evil and stuff like that, because I know Trump supporters. I know that they're not all Nazis. I know they don't want to start lynching black people in the streets or some crazy wackadoo shit like that.
I remember when Trump got elected, they were saying women's rights were going to be thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Day one, women had no more rights. Okay.
So yeah, just some of the rhetoric that I was, and some of the treatment that I was seeing of Trump supporters, I was just like, this is not cool. And on this Facebook post, I challenged this podcaster and I was like, this is not the way we're supposed to be going about this. We're supposed to be trying to change these people's minds. And he goes, well, some people aren't worth saving. And I was like, wow, that's stupid. I was like, this is just really stupid and immature. And so then all of his like cronies started dogpiling on me. They're like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Are you possibly defending like Trump supporters? And then somebody
Right.
said Trump
It was the hive
supporters, and
mind, right? Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yep.
it was attack dogs from every fucking angle. And so then eventually someone's like, my child is 4 years old and they're never going to see my parents again because they voted for Trump. And I was like, get some help, dude. And then
Yeah.
somebody else chimed in. They're like, I wish it was legal to kill Trump supporters. And I was like, okay, okay, forget the baby guy. You need some fucking help. And they said anybody who humanizes Trump supporters is no better than like a Nazi sympathizer. All
Power
this is
and
happening.
left.
Yeah, all this is happening within a span of like 20 minutes, just notification after notification after notification. And all of a sudden it just hit me. I was like, this is not the side that I want to be associated with. If this is how they're going to treat people, this is a cult, and growing up super religious and becoming an atheist and sort of viewing religion objectively. And again, I don't hate religious people, but the kind of Christianity that I grew up in was a cult. It was this crazy wackadoo
Way more
orthodox.
hardcore than we're used to.
Yes. Yeah. And so like I grew up in a cult. I know what it's like to I know the signs of one, and that's all that I could see is I was the objector, and so I had to be ostracized. And I was like, this is a fucking cult. So I moved away, or I just kind of became politically homeless. I stopped trying to give a shit about it. But then I really missed comedy, because the left doesn't have any good comedy. And I was like, I miss like laughing at like fucked up shit and stuff like that. And I kept hearing about this show called Legion of Skanks. So I went and checked it out. It was the funniest fucking show I'd heard in forever. They were like telling real dark jokes. And I was just like, this is so refreshing. And they kept referring to Dave Smith as the political guy. And I was like, and I knew that he had a show called Part of the Problem. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll check him out. Maybe he's a leftist who's like centered and not insane. And then I went and listened to that first episode, and it just happened to be an episode where he went like in depth explaining the philosophy of libertarianism, and in a way I've never heard before.
If that's the first episode you ended up listening to, right?
Yeah. And it's like
how that just happens to work out.
Yeah, and it was like after that first episode, I was like, this is it. This is what I am. I'm a libertarian. I believe in everything that he just said. And one of the things that really hit me like a freight train is he said that racism is bad, but war is way worse. And I was trying to come up with the left wing like counter argument to that, and I couldn't think of anything, because if you look at the numbers, the deaths that are due to racism pale in comparison to war deaths.
Right.
We're talking a couple thousand.
Yeah, I could give you like a real life example of that with Trump's indictment, whatever the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
I think Marjorie Taylor Greene showed up like in Manhattan, and AOC tweeted like, we don't, people were like kind of yelling at Marjorie Taylor Greene and giving her a hard time out in the street. And AOC tweeted at her like, yeah, this is what like racists get when they come to Manhattan, like, blah, 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 get out of our town, etc. Like at the same time you're voting for like funding Nazis in Ukraine, AOC. So you're like objectively you're all good with like furthering the cause of war, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's opposed to that, is bad because she's some sort of racist in your mind.
Well, they just got the Mockingbird orders.
I know
this morning,
because
that's all
like,
Twitter was going after her.
Sure.
Man, it's after that first episode of Part of the Problem, I was just that's where I felt like I landed somewhere instead of constantly trying to get somewhere. I felt like I finally landed, because everything about libertarian philosophy to me is objective. There's no subjectivity in it, and when everything is, you can't argue with objective. And so like the right to defend yourself. Like why in the world would there ever be a situation where you wouldn't have the right to protect your own life? Why would there ever be a situation ever where you wouldn't be able to protect your family or your property? Why would there ever be a situation where taxation makes sense, where it's not stealing? And it's sort of those hard brick walls philosophically speaking, that I came to, where I was like, there's no going past this point. Like this is like base human rights at its very core, is property rights and self-ownership, you know?
Yeah,
And
it's interesting, man, because what I'm coming to, a lot of the like the libertarians I'm making friends with, everybody's kind of coming to it through Dave in some way. Well, not everybody, but a lot of
yeah,
people have. He's been a really good messenger, and attracted people. He's been on the big platforms, and his show definitely very similar to you. I came to him through Rogan, and I was like,
Mhm.
this guy sounds pretty good. Sounds like he makes a lot of sense. Let me check him out. And I listened to it, and he fucking woke me up too. I kind of had a libertarian streak already, but
Right.
I didn't realize how much of a libertarian I really was until I heard someone who like explained the philosophy behind it clearly.
Mhm.
So that's interesting, man. It's a white pill to see. I know, Cap, you always are saying like, oh, where's the face of
I
the
think it's gonna
libertarians?
have to be Dave
Where's the
Smith.
heroes? It's
Yeah.
Dave is one of the guys, man. How many people have we spoken to now? And that's one of the first things they say. It's like, oh yeah, Dave.
Andy's story of finding libertarianism sounds a lot like anybody else's story that we talk to, where it's this coming of light moment, or just
like a profound moment.
You're no longer pleased with your political party. You can't go to the other political party because they're just as batshit crazy. And by, excuse me, for grace of God, but you end up finding, libertarianism. And I feel like, as unique as your story is, I feel like we've heard this story 100 times, man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, this is the story that I think, kind of produces lifelong, liberty people,
Right.
is when you kind of finally see that bigger picture, when you have that sort of like epiphany. It's like there's a lot of shit you can't just unsee. You can't unsee the military industrial complex. You can't unsee, what things like welfare has done to this country. Like
We always say that, getting into politics and starting the podcast, and I'm sure you feel it too. You looked behind that curtain that everybody's ignored for so long.
Yep.
And there's nothing. We are in this till the end now. There's
Yep.
no going back.
Yep. You can't just go back to worshiping the state.
Yeah. Even something like taxation, you can't unsee now the
Yeah.
idea of, before, or like sometimes like a guy like Rogan will put it like, yeah, I want to be a good member of society and pay my taxes, like to contribute to everybody, whatever. Yeah. But if you don't do that, the way Dave would explain, it's like, yeah, they will come to your house. Men with guns will come to your house and they will throw you in a fucking cage for the rest of your life if you don't pay your taxes. Like, does that sound like some sort of nice, voluntary exchange of funds in order to help other people? No, like that's what the mafia would do if you didn't pay your protection racket money or whatever. They come and beat they might even be nicer to you. They might just like give you a break,
just
or
break your foot,
break your leg and let you go
Yeah.
or something like that. They're not gonna, the mafia wouldn't imprison you for fucking the rest of your life in a cage. What's worse?
Yeah. They wouldn't want to pay for that.
Right.
At the very least, they would put you out of your misery early, But yeah, I mean, especially that you bring it, or that you draw the comparison between the state and like the mafia, is that, man, they do the exact same shit that the mafia does,
because they are the mafia.
because they are the biggest mafia. And there's a TikTok that I made, and this is not to put myself on a pedestal or anything, but this is like my favorite one that I've done. I was high whenever I came up with the idea, so I'm very proud of myself for this. But it's this monologue thing that I did, and it's called "Why Do We Have Laws for Tinted Windows?" And it sort of goes down like, of all things in the world, why do we need to have a law for tinted windows? And is it because we're so terrified that without regulating tinted windows, like people are just going to drive with black construction paper for windows where they can't see anything? Like, is that really what we're afraid of? Or is that something that you think would kind of work itself out naturally?
Right.
And we don't need to have we don't need to have anybody force this stuff, because anybody out there who can drive, the upper 99.999 percentile of drivers out there want to be able to see where they're fucking driving.
Right.
And so why would anybody get it? So why do we need to have a law? Because it's not preventing crime. You just created a crime out of thin air.
Yep.
You know,
Something to charge you for, more money.
Again,
Yeah.
Just like speed cameras, man. The cop can't be there all the time, so we're gonna put a robot there all the time.
And you're speaking my language now, being a Bronx kid who used to, you know, drive the Ricer cars with the dark tinted window.
The cranberry.
The cranberry, we used to call it, right? It was a Hyundai Elantra with the dark tinted windows. You know how many times NYPD pulled me over and gave me a ticket and they put that fucking thing over your window to like gauge exactly, like, we need to get the percentage of exactly how dark your windows are, because there was a legit percentage or something like that it couldn't be. Again, like, I wasn't committing any crimes. Like, it looked fucking cool on the car to have dark windows with black rims, and I'm a criminal now because of it.
The technology that can make it to where nobody can see inside your car, but you can see outside perfectly, has existed for decades. You know, since like the fucking 70s, you know, maybe even earlier. Like one-way mirrors, that's not a new thing. Those have been around. Those have probably been around since the 30s or 40s.
Yeah.
And you can see through those things just fine. So then why do we need to have regulations for it?
Because they don't want you to have your own privacy.
Yeah, exactly.
I always talk about this with
you're
cops,
exactly right.
And they're like, well, we can't tell if anyone's in the back seat, and I can't tell if you got a gun, and it makes my job harder. As Spider-Man once said, I forgot where that's my problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I'm not here to make your job easier.
Yeah.
That was the evil Spider-Man.
No, that was the
no. That was Spider-Man 1.
Was
yeah.
it?
When he
Totally
didn't get paid,
right.
and then he got robbed. The guy got robbed. I forgot where that's my problem.
I'm a huge fucking nerd. Chris is 100% correct.
Yeah.
Chris is a little bit more of a history nerd than me, but actually I saw a tweet today that's kind of like pertinent to this. It's not a tweet of the week or anything, but it was by some guy, Sheriff John Mina, and he was commenting on DeSantis's carry, like permitless carry in Florida.
Yep.
So Sheriff John Mina said permitless carry will only make things more difficult for law enforcement. To which I respond, I'm like, my rights don't exist to make your job easy.
Yeah,
that's the kind of like rationale though that the NYPD in New York City does. Like, well, like permitless carry, I can see them saying that, right? I think some of our friends who might be NYPD have actually said that as well. When we've brought that up to them about like permitless carry or making the case that more people should be having guns in New York City, and they'd be like, well, that's just going to make things worse for us. Like, things are going to be there's going to be more guns and things are going to be harder. Like, no, it wouldn't. But at the same time, again, like they don't fundamentally look at it from it's your individual right.
When you play for the state,
like it's like, I'm a cop, so I get to carry a gun around everywhere. That's
cool. Why they became cops.
Yeah, like it's cool. I get to be above the law now, and you, the peon, no, it's a danger to me and my job, so you don't get to have your rights.
There's a video that you should show this guy that I saw on Twitter a few weeks ago, and a guy walks into a little walk-in convenience store in Brooklyn, and then pulls a shotgun out, points it at the clerk's head, blows his head off.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Oh, his son was with him.
Yep.
Yeah. Show him that video and say, why is this clerk not allowed to defend himself? Because that is the violence you'd be preventing. Because if that guy walks in with a shotgun and the guy behind the counter is fucking strapped,
right?
Like, so these stories don't happen. That child didn't have.
I was going to say, I already have the logic that they're going to twist in their mind. Well, a clerk in a business, they can protect themselves, right? Like, we give out business premises licenses, and they're not as hard to get, so that person would. But again, like, yeah, okay, great. Like, there's some mechanism you could go through to get a permit.
They shouldn't need the permit. Yeah.
What about another random person walking down the street who just gets punched in the fucking head by a random criminal or shot? Like, for that person, the same logic should apply. Why is one more worthy of defending themselves than the other? But
we have a chain of grocery stores here called Meijer. Not to blow up Meijer. It doesn't matter that it was a Meijer, but it was a grocery store parking lot. And several years ago, there was a man who just was sitting in the parking lot, and there was a woman by herself, came walking out to her car. It's like 3 p.m. Like, this is broad daylight. He just gets out of his van, goes, throws her in the back of his van, and drives off. Just kidnapped her, And so then stories like that, like, why is that woman not allowed to defend her fucking life? And thank God they found that lady. And there was some other lady that he tried to kidnap, like, out of her home. But it's like, why are these people not allowed to defend themselves.
Skaggs, what was that episode, Clint Russell's episode, where he explained what the politician was doing wrong, talking to the late night host about guns?
Okay. Yeah, Clint Russell did a breakdown of Jon Stewart's interview of some Republican
with like an Ohio Republican rep, about guns.
Gun, and I mean Jon Stewart did shit on him just because the guy sucked at it. But go ahead, sorry.
And where Clint Russell hit one of his earlier points in the episode, to me, was a hands down like end of argument. Do you mean to tell me I don't have the right to self-defense?
Yeah.
And like any gun argument comes down to that one question. Do you believe I should not be allowed to defend myself? Because if the answer is yes, you're
you have no argument.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so you really want to walk through life and imagine that you have no right to defend yourself? So by that theory, I could start whooping your ass right here, and you're not going to defend yourself because you don't feel that people should have the right to defend themselves. Game over right there. I even told a cop buddy of mine this. I was like, I supported the police more back when I was younger, and this was several years ago.
Right.
And I still do. I have family members and good friends who are police, but I know they're part of the state. And I had said something to him along the lines of, I was like, yeah, I'll listen to the laws until the law tells me to lay down and die. And then it gets all thrown out the window, pal. And I don't give a fuck what you're asking me to do.
Yeah, that was an interesting interview with Jon Stewart and that Republican guy. We'll just close off comment on. Like, the Republicans suck because they'll try and get into like this semantic debate with the leftists, trying to like appease them or some shit.
Yeah,
where it's like, no, we're not here. I'm not here to fucking appease you or to justify your whatever it is, your worldview. I'm here because I have fucking rights, my right to defend myself. So Clint did do a good job. I wish we could see Clint Russell debate like a Jon Stewart or something like that on gun rights.
He's going to be debating Destiny over the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Destiny's pretty interesting dude. I listened to him for the first time recently, and like he knows his shit. He's a bit smug. He like laughs after he makes.
He's the left-wing Ben Shapiro. That's what I've realized about him.
Oh boy.
He talks really, really fast. He does a whole lot of word salad, but like with Ben Shapiro, if you just break down what he's saying, then you're like, oh, he's just saying the same bullshit that Rush Limbaugh did.
Right.
And I mean, like, it's hard to argue against those people, when
it is. One thing I've learned too, man, over the years is like, you could do it. Like Clint is, for example, is really good at debating people, and he'll make a lot of points that make sense, but you can be really good at debating. It still doesn't mean you're fucking right at all. Right. Like Jon Stewart, right? He's very good at like sitting one-on-one with a person and then just getting them into the weeds and making them look like an idiot or look like a hypocrite or whatever. But he's not right about gun rights, Jon Stewart. He's not. So it doesn't matter if you're better necessarily. You could convince more people of your point. So it's good, but it doesn't mean necessarily that you're right if you're just good at debating.
For sure.
I mean, you look at the way things are done today. Just because he's good at debating, the brainwash people will, then he must be correct because he's really good at it. That's all it takes now.
You know what? A perfect example of what you're saying, Skaggs. You can find a debate on YouTube between Christopher Hitchens and his brother, and they held a 2-part debate inside of a cathedral. Christopher Hitchens being this very famous atheist, and then his brother is a devout Christian, but his brother is also very anti-war, and Christopher Hitchens, for all of the things that were amazing about him, was a fucking war hawk, and if you listen to that debate, his brother just sweeps the floor with him. He's like, you're telling me that there's weapons of mass destruction out there, and this is the evidence that you have for it. He's like, I'm the Christian. You're supposed to be demanding you're supposed to be demanding evidence from me about my beliefs. And you're saying that this bullshit evidence that you're giving me for Iraq is good enough? And he absolutely decimates his brother, but his brother has that like Christopher Hitchens swagger about him. And so the crowd totally went with Christopher Hitchens. And it's like, objectively, his brother won the debate.
Right.
He made infinitely better points about Iraq. You know, whenever the debate switches over to religion, that's when you know, I think Christopher Hitchens had the upper hand. But
yeah, you were looking at it from an objective point of view, though. But another
Right.
thing about debates, I don't think we're going to be talking about debates tonight. But another thing about debates is there can you're a libertarian now, though, so you look at most things objectively, I'm sure. But most people, man, like when Trump and Biden got up there to debate, you think they were going to fucking change anybody's mind on the other side?
No,
like it
everybody
was
was
like
too sold.
like it's like it reminds me of like a pep rally before like a high school football game. Like you get up
Right.
there and you go, oh, you rile each other up to go out there and then play the next day. And the playing, I guess, would be voting or whatever soon.
Yeah, it's not like the late 90s or early 2000s anymore, where you can be like, yeah, I'm kind of looking at this Democrat and I'm kind of looking at this Republican, and just nobody gives a fuck.
Sure.
You know, like it's definitely not like that anymore. Like the people who are gonna vote for Trump now are going to vote for Trump in November. You know, and it's the same thing with whatever person I hope to God it's Biden. I hope he runs again. That'll be so fucking funny.
Yeah, that'd be our best bet to show how weak he really is.
Yeah. Oh man,
just wheel him out there.
Yeah,
like his corporeal form.
I love all the hot mics of like the people like ushering him like onto the stage, and it's literally just these bodyguards, two-step old manning this guy, and they're like, "You're the blue one. You're the blue one. Yeah. I'm the blue one."
His mark, like here's your mark. First
Here's
guy on the left.
That one.
Shake his hand
one
with
on
your
the
right
left.
hand. Yeah, I'll lead you. What would the guy say? He's like, I'll lead you into it or something like that. Like,
dude, I'll never forget.
Can't even have like organic conversations with people. Fuck.
No.
Do you think he has those Secret Service people like giving him pointers or giving him direction whenever he's sniffing little kids?
I don't know.
I think they're like,
they're calling him out.
I would really love to know what the fuck's going on there with that stuff. It's
I want to know if there's some Secret Service guy who's like, now go for the right here this time.
Yeah.
He's like Ron Burgundy, like he can only do what the teleprompter says, so he can only do what the people say in his ear. Maybe he's not even trying to be a pedophile. They're literally just fucking.
Yeah, maybe he's
like, now sniffer.
He's just that retarded.
There was he was sitting down at some global event, whatever, and there was an over this shoulder shot, and he was holding this card, and in like big bold letters, it was like a 5-step process. It was like, walk to your seat in Capitol.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Shake everyone's hand, sit down in your chair. I was like, holy shit.
Imagine
it's
if they were
underlined
like,
for a reason. He sat in so many other people's chairs.
Imagine that, like if they wrote, sit in Peter Ducey's chair, ask questions to the president, like, and he just started behaving like he was.
Like they screwed up like the cards,
that,
like he got Peter Ducey's cards.
Yep. That'd be fucking funny, man. God damn,
dude,
that guy is an endless
Harris's
barrel
cards.
of laughs. Oh my god, then he'd just be giggling like a fucking fool the whole time.
He'd pass out from laughing.
What a man. I mean, I think it's funny. I'm starting to become way more open to like the Michael Malice kind of like opinion of politicians. We're like, we need more John Fettermans. We need more Joe Bidens. Like they're great. They do more damage to like the deep state and to the system than like a Donald Trump trying to can. Just because like they just lay it bare. Look at it. Look at what they are. Look at what.
It's hard to miss how bad they are, man. And to stand up for them just makes you look as dumb.
I mean, you want to talk about mental gymnastics, I mean, back in 2016, I was pro Hillary.
Oh my, that was a tough one.
That was before I accepted Christ into my heart. So I was pro Hillary, and I remember looking at some of the things that Trump was saying, where he was on camera saying one thing, and they would ask him about it. He's like, I never said that. What are you talking about? And I remember seeing that, being like, this is batshit crazy. Like, how do people not see this? And I remember I asked my father-in-law about that, and I was like, yeah, man, I don't understand. Like, you've seen him lie. He's not telling the truth. He goes, like, how can you support that? And he goes, well, they all lie. He just makes it obvious enough. Yeah. So he's basically telling me the truth. I'm like, okay, that weirdly makes sense. Sure.
Like, what do you think? Trump is the first politician who ever lied. This is
right. Also why some people do.
Dude, this is why I also I adore George Santos in Long Island, right? The guy who has lied about literally every fucking thing that has to do with his life. Flawless. because he has gotten so much attention from Congress and other politicians calling him out about how much of a liar he is, and he should be expelled from whatever his fucking position is. We should have a revote because he's a liar. Like Dianne Feinstein calling him a liar. I mean, what? Yeah,
Most
he's the
truthful
first guy.
woman in the
None
world,
of them
yeah.
ever fucking lied before.
Yeah.
Pelosi's never lied. None of them ever lied. That's why I love the guy. Please, George Santos, keep fucking lying about everything.
Run for president.
Yeah.
I would say I'm pretty much in that same malice camp where, like, before I was like, the Libertarian Party just needs to like run enough elections and we'll get somebody in office and we can like slow things down, before it collapses entirely. But I don't know. The more I've thought about it, and I'm like, I'm to the point where I'm like, it's impossible to turn this ship around. Culturally, it's working completely against us.
Yeah, I had this. So I do another episode with a good friend of ours, and I like, speaking of like turning the ship around, like culturally, like I can't imagine it happened without, like, as crazy as it sounds, like almost re-education camps or something. Like how could we turn this around like peacefully, where like, because there's just going to be a percentage, and I don't know the exact number, that just is not going.
Yeah,
I think, and even like, I'm sorry, even with like the idea of like the national divorce, it's the same people that are going to be like, oh, you want a national divorce, so we're just going to try and wage war now on your side of the nation, or we're going to try and cut supplies to your nation, or dam up a river so your part doesn't get.
You are seeing people react to the national divorce like that. I think what you're explaining to some extent too is kind of like what the New Hampshire guys think and what they're doing. I feel like they're like, we're not going to fucking convince everybody to become a libertarian or something like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and compile as many libertarians we can in one spot, like wall the fucking place off and make it our own country. In a sense. So I like that a lot of people though are taking different approaches and methods. And I think this is kind of what we talked about on the last episode too, Cap, where we made common ground with MAGA people. We're like, okay, you guys want to try like the top down approach? Okay, we'll try the bottom up approach. The New Hampshire guys will try the national divorce approach. Garrett, our friend, will try like the entrepreneurship approach. You, Andy, will try like the musical approach. Like everyone's trying a different thing
until the music industry kills him.
Right.
Disappears his ass.
That was not an anxiety I had until right fucking now.
I had that anxiety, man, when Edward Snowden fucking retweeted me one time of that video. Are you
shitting me?
Oh, dude, yeah.
It's like the first thing I said. I was like, now you're on the CIA watch list.
Oh shit, dude.
It was when the Twitter files came out. Snowden. I remember a video of Snowden posted of like an ex-CIA agent explaining how they feed fake information to the media, and I was just like, hey, this is like pertinent right now with the Twitter files. And then I get a notification. It's like Edward Snowden retweeted your tweet. I'm like, oh my god, and it had 500,000 people viewed it. I'm like, god damn it! Now I'm on a fucking list somewhere. I'm associated with Edward Snowden.
My big claim to fame on Twitter is Gilbert Gottfried retweeted me once.
Oh shit.
And I will tell my grandchildren about that. I'd be like, what your movie star? I don't give a fuck.
That
Gilbert Gottfried retweeted me one time.
That he can be very dark with his humor, Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the best roles he's ever played was on a roast show on Netflix called his Historical Roasts, I think. And he played Hitler getting roasted by Anne Frank. And it's all Jewish comedians who are doing this roast for Hitler. It's the funniest fucking thing. Gilbert Gottfried playing Hitler is so funny.
What is this called? I need to watch this.
It's called Historical Roasts, I think.
Historical Roasts. Okay.
I'm writing this down.
Dude, oh my god. Gilbert Gottfried playing Hitler is the funniest fucking thing you'll ever see.
That's fantastic. Skaggs is looking it up right
now. No,
now.
I'm just writing it down in my notes so I could watch it later. It does sound pretty funny.
So I tweeted and I said basically what I just said there. I was like, Gilbert Gottfried playing Hitler getting roasted by Anne Frank. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Went to bed that night, woke up the next morning, said Gilbert Gottfried retweeted your tweet, and I woke my wife up and I was like, dude, guess what? And she was like, what? It's like 4 a.m. I'm like, Gilbert Gottfried, fucking Iago retweeted my tweet. And she's like, who's Gilbert Gottfried? I was like, fucking
That's
could
funny.
talk to her.
I vibe with you, man. I did feel a little bit nervous about Ed Persona, but it was cool. It is cool to have like somebody who you look up to or kind of like revere to like retweet you. That's a bunch of fucking losers
somebody
we are, but
somebody that you really feel like is one of the good guys who did the right thing and who actually tried to like fight the state, and they saw what you said and they're like, yep, that guy gets it. You know, it's just cool. It kind of lets you know like you're on the right track.
yeah,
you know.
definitely. Let me ask you another question, man. Coming from the kind of like you're in the music field, you're in the music industry. We did an episode a while ago about Rage Against the Machine. And what do you think is going on with certain bands? Like, let's just use Rage Against the Machine for an example. These bands that kind of encapsulated rebellion,
fuck the system,
fuck the system, revolution, Rage especially being like primarily an anti-war sort of band. So I don't know how familiar you are with their behavior recently around COVID. And we did a little bit of an expose on them about how they were fundraising for somebody in Ukraine who was part of like an active military unit. And I couldn't fucking believe it, because Rage went from anti-war to like helping fund active like soldiers in an active war zone. What do you think happened to some of the bands like that and some of the musicians?
I think they just exposed themselves as being fake punks, you know. If you look at what the punk movement, and I mean the OG punk movement from like the late 70s and early 80s with like the hardcore scene in LA and New York, or even London. If you look at the Sex Pistols, they only released one album. It's called Anarchy in the UK. And just listen to the album, listen to the lyrics. Everything on that album is anarchy, you know, like anti-authoritarian anarchism, and not the kind of anarchism that people, this isn't Mad Max anarchism, you know. They were anti-authoritarian. They were anti-establishment. That's what the real punk movement was, because you could be, one of these punk kids who were like a communist, but at the end of the day, you were anti-authoritarian,
right?
And you were anti fucking word I just said. Anyway, you were anti-authoritarian. And so whenever Trump was campaigning, Johnny Rotten, lead singer of Sex Pistols, was like, I'm voting for Trump. I love the guy. And the media just flipped the fuck out. Johnny Rotten, lead singer of punk rock band the Sex Pistols, is voting against Hillary Clinton.
The stuffy establishment lady.
Of course he is. And he did. I mean, if you get that guy drunk and he's brutally honest with you, he's probably like, I didn't like Trump all that much, but they hated him, so therefore I loved him. And it's like, yes, that's what the punk movement is. All these other bitches out there, like the fucking Offspring, fuck them. Like they're fake punks. They were never anti-authoritarian. That's just what the left thought was cool after the punk movement died out. And so they bastardized that and they appropriated that. And so all of a sudden it turned into this left-wing thing, like specifically left-wing. And so now you have kids who grew up listening to punk music who are like, I'm punk, therefore lockdowns, therefore teaching your kids how to be transgender or whatever, cutting your kids' dicks off. Like,
what's more punk than that?
Well, I mean, okay, that's a good point. All my kids have their dicks, so I'm not that much of a punk, I guess.
Again, man, going back to fucking Rage, like, vaccine mandates to go to their shows. And now it's ironic. Recently,
you don't even need them.
Well, no, they've been in the news kind of trying to like backtrack and be like, no, we never did that. It wasn't us who had anything to do with that. It was the venues. It was them who mandated it.
That's what I feel like, when we talk about these bands and stuff who are now like pro-establishment, the music industry, I've said it a million times, is a dark, evil place. Britney Spears was literally a slave as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And I'm sure when Rage Against the Machines, formed and they were up and coming, they truly were anti-establishment, anti-war, but they've made so much money and lived in Beverly Hills for so long and have been beholden to these industry contracts for so long that like this deep into the game, like it's either never make another penny again or just be like, yeah, we're pro-vaccine. Okay, well, that's a real easy fucking decision to make. You've already gone down the road of rich and famous. You're not going to stop now.
Mhm.
Yeah,
They're just like rappers who grew up in the suburbs. Like they're posers. You know?
I think you're right, man. You make a good point too about them just being in that world now for a long time of like wealthy, famous person, like in the Hollywood Hills.
Right.
They're so detached from the anger that a average
was
Joe
their first
Trump
album?
supporter might have. You know, like they don't.
What year was
all.
their first album?
In 95.
Yeah.
Okay, think of it. They have the last time they were broke, you were 6 years old. You know what I mean? Like 7 years old.
Yeah.
So like they've been wealthy, famous individuals for over 70% of your life already.
Yeah.
They're not going back to that shit, you know, and they are detached. They've lived the finer things of life for eons now.
Yeah.
Andy, did you watch I think it was on Netflix, the train wreck documentary about Woodstock?
No, but I've
please do.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Please do. It's again, it's kind of related. It's just interesting to see how we were talking about just like the anger behind this kind of music back then, of course, you know, and like this was an angry fucking Woodstock where they thought it was gonna be like peace, love, and hippies, and you know, back in the 60s. And it wasn't that. And again, it's just so goddamn interesting to see like these same bands who like led that charge be a bunch of fucking pussies now. And even watching the documentary, my God, I mean, them having on some journalists who are like trying to tie this into like white rage and all these woke things, and I'm like, oh my God, this is 1999. These
were
terms you made up
original seeds.
Yeah,
original seeds.
Yeah, in a sense, but watch it, man. It's really, you would appreciate it. It's really good. Really,
I'll check it out.
It's not only just cool to see the whole event, like it must, you know, aside from the insanity.
I wish we were old enough to go.
I don't know. I kind of wish I was there, but I kind of don't at the same time.
It was pretty harsh conditions.
The psychology of the crowd is interesting to dig into with that. So highly recommend that one.
And funny enough, right when they go to burn it all down, they just start singing, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me."
Right. You see, like that spirit, man, that rage spirit was there, literally. While they're burning the place down. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
Yeah.
Now imagine if we had that same kind of energy politically. Like if we had like a legit movement with that kind of an energy, you know, voting. If we had that 20 years, and not to sound like a black pilled little bitch, but if we had that like 20 years ago and like a real political movement with that kind of anger, I think we might have been able to turn the ship around like prior to like 2008. But
the whole, sorry, go ahead.
Well, one thing I want to add on to something you were talking about previously is like, you know, our enemy is not just the state. It's the state plus 110 years of propaganda and brainwashing of the population and globalism and fucking Jews. I'm kidding. But no, but like there's no, but yeah, it's our enemy is the state, but it's also like 5 generations of brainwashed people, you know, into worshiping this organism, you know. But
it's hard to unravel that, man. You know, it's no easy task.
You know,
it's gonna take. It took them 110 years to get to this point. I don't think there's a quick magic easy fix. I think the fix is fucking long and hard, no pun intended, and it has to start with people. I do think, you know, I tend to be optimistic or hopeful, white pilled. I think that like this generation, like especially, how many friends have we made through podcasting? You're plus one now, Andy. Like there are a lot of motherfuckers out there that are, you know, alive and trying to do something about it. We're the beginning.
Well, if you look at it, you know, like we've said in the past, it's the fourth turning. Weak men have created hard times. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, hard times. What came out of there? Strong men. What did they create? The 80s and the 90s. Good times.
Pinnacle of civilization.
Yep. Yeah,
Mhm.
the pinnacle of civilization. Then in the 2000s, political correctness started. Those
Yep.
good times created weak men.
Also,
20 years of
9/11, the
yeah.
wars, all those things.
And
Yeah.
also, if you think of it, okay, so after World War II, Korea and Vietnam, those men came home and made this country a better place.
Mhm.
Well, we had the Iraqi war. A, it was an endless war. They never came home. And B, the government does not care about homeless veterans or veterans in general.
Yeah.
And why? Because if you keep the strong population down when they come back from war, they can't be strong and create more good times. They
Mhm.
can't prolong the good times. You've only elevated the weakest of the weak. And here we are now in bad times.
Well, okay, so not to commit the horrible crime of living in Ancapistan, but
Sure.
like yeah, I mean, if you think if we did live in like a real free society, a real like anarchist society, you think we would even have that sort of cyclical weak men and strong men and weak men and strong men? I mean, because you don't I mean,
No,
I don't think so either.
because I feel like from what I know about this magical Ancapistan place that you guys talk about, it would be much large but small civilizations.
Yes,
It
tiny
would,
communities.
yes. So a state like New York would have 50, 60 communities, let's say. And throughout those 60 communities equals maybe 8 million people, however you want to divide that up. And community 1 is ran vastly different than community 60. So that's why I feel like we wouldn't have this fourth turning, but in your own communities, you could very well possibly have the fourth turning.
You think so?
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
just sitting back here enjoying
take,
Chris trying to explain Ancapistan. I'm not even going to say
no. I'm not saying, but what I'm saying, I just feel like it would be a smaller community and it would take strong men to make good times in your community.
Well, maybe in Ancapistan, you don't have massive waves of like strong men and then weak men and sort of these deep crevices in these waves. Maybe it's just like a little bit of a ripple. Maybe you're kind of a pussy compared to your dad, but maybe because of that your kid grows up to be a little bit stronger than you. Yeah.
You also wouldn't have this this strong central authority trying to psyop everyone all the time, subverting them,
Well, it's like right now we have that cyclical, strong men, weak men, but the difference is that the strong men out there have the power of the government behind them, and so we're talking mega strong men in a political sense, creating mega weak men, and so it's huge peaks and valleys as far as like how strong our men are and how weak our men are, but without the power of the state, you can't get men that strong and you can't get men that weak.
It's a good point. Very good point.
Okay, man, I'm reading The White Pill right now by Malice, and he's talking about the rise of the Soviet Union and the history there, and the starvation of like Ukraine and all the provinces in the Soviet Union. Like that shit was done on fucking purpose. It's not like they didn't have enough corn or whatever in the fucking fields. No, they wanted to starve everyone to death so that they were weak and they could not oppose the state and they can enact whatever kind of society that they viewed. This crazy totalitarian, world where they called it communism and equality and all this shit.
Equity.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I guess we could even make an argument they are trying to kind of starve us to some extent right now, but they're not trying to starve us right now, but they're doing other things to try and subvert the population or to weaken them so that they can usher in another strong central control over.
Well, how many
different tactic?
How many food processing plants went up in flames over the last year?
Yeah, it's not on the level of the Holodomor, but it's
But I mean, like it happening more than once. You can be like, that's a trend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very suspicious.
Or at least people are noticing now. People are
all the shipping containers that can't make it into port, all that food going out there and spoiling, just nonstop, every which way. They are gearing up for a collapse. They want the bank to collapse, so they do fucking digital currency and so on. They take your money, take your food, force medicine on you. And then you will live in the pods and eat the bugs and watch the pornography.
Which I'm all down for the porn part, but pods seem easily cleanable. the bugs, man. That's what I'm gonna. If they're like you don't have to eat bugs. You can have like microwave burritos for the rest of your life. I'll be like, all right, let's do it.
You'll consider it. You'll consider being one of the WEF pod slaves. For
Smart City.
All right.
I'm an easy sell. I'm not gonna lie to you.
All right. Fair enough. I respect it. All right, man. Let's wrap it up. Andy, thank you so much for coming on with us, dude. It was fun. You are an interesting person.
No tweets of the week.
Nah, we'll do it. Just me and you,
Okay.
man. It'd be too much of a curveball at this point with the ones I got. We'll save it for another day.
No problem.
Yeah, you're always welcome on, man. Anytime. This was fucking awesome. Anything else you want to?
This is great.
Anything else you want to add or shout out your
shout out all your stuff, man.
Yeah,
Shameless right now.
Hell yeah. All right. So if you want to find me on TikTok, you can find me at Andy Koons. That's Koons. If you want to find me on Twitter, where I say all the shit that this is the same spiel I give at the end of my podcast too, like almost word for word. But like, if you want to find me on Twitter, which is where I say all the shit that'll get me banned off of TikTok, you can find me at Andy_Koons. I am releasing a full-length metal album on May 2nd called God Emperor. It's going to be under the name Monopoly on Violence. And yeah, it's pretty brutal. And if you love metal, I think you're going to enjoy this. So I'm excited.
Is there any music out now of yours that we could see?
So I haven't put out any like singles or anything like that, but I was on a podcast called We Speak English Good, and I debuted 2 of the songs.
Okay, nice.
On that show.
See, so I knew we should have had you play a song today.
And I meant to ask you guys that if you wanted to do that, but I feel like such a tool being like, hey, do you want to play my music?
We're not like that. We don't give a shit.
Yeah. We want to listen to some fucking metal.
Yeah. Why don't you send me like a clip or something of one of your songs, and I will change our intro to be your music instead of our music.
Oh, hell yeah.
Something like that. So that's what you were listening to, if you're still here at this point. Listening to Andy's music.
Yeah, that was a great song, whichever one that was.
All right, everybody.
Either somewhere in between the first track on the album and the last track in the album, but it was definitely a song from that album.
It was a showstopper. All right, so that's all?
Yep, that's it, man.
All right, Doom Nation, thank you guys again. As always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we will be back next week. Adios, Doom Nation.